Welcome back, folks. I'm going to suggest to my colleagues, well, first of all, remind ourselves that at the earlier meeting today, we talked about the fact that we've got three choices. One choice is to continue with the existing turnaround plan as it is. Second choice is to continue with the turnaround plan and add additional actions, or to discontinue the turnaround plan and take a new action. And I think where we came to, colleagues, correct me if I'm wrong, that the first item was unacceptable to us, that we're not going to just continue with the current turnaround plan that we passed last year. So now the next part is for us to each think about 2 and 3. Do we continue with the turnaround plan and add additional actions, or discontinue the turnaround plan and take a new action? So I keep starting on one side of the table or the other, and I'll be really mean now and start in the middle. Board Member Rankin.
Are we talking about one or the other right now, Adam?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, we're talking about Adams.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Would you repeat that again, please?
I'd be glad to. So the choice that we eliminated was to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Our choices now are, do we continue with the turnaround plan that we adopted last year and add additional actions? Or do we discontinue the turnaround plan from last year and then take some new action?
And
Thoughts?
can I read that, or do I just paraphrase it?
Just want you to say what you think
Okay.
is the right thing.
The direction that I would recommend at this point would be district full external management. And I would include that for that high school also.
Okay, so for Adams 14, you would do item 3, which would be discontinue the current turnaround plan.
Yes.
Take a new action. Do you want to describe a little bit more what your thoughts are, or you want to pass for a minute?
Well, I think I can describe it. I think we need to have a direction from the Attorney General's office. That would be my recommendation. And within that, some specific points that would have external management explained as to what we're thinking, because I thought we had that 2 years ago, and evidently we did not. So I think maybe greater clarification as to what it is and what the expectations are and the consequences. And that will be in a timeline. That would be my recommendation at this point. And I would like the same thing for Adams City High School. And I think, personally, I would like to see the same full external management be in that area if it can take on the high school separately, but have it basically the same because of external management. And what I believe that would entail for us to do with the points underneath as to explaining what it entailed. And the high school, it could be a little different just because it's a smaller unit. But I haven't gotten that far along with my thoughts.
My hope is that we'll provide much stronger clarity. When we use the term management partner, I think that may create confusion because it doesn't tell you, when push comes to shove, who the decision maker is. So I think I'm hoping to see that that our decision indicates exactly the clear boundaries of the new management entity's responsibility and power. It's also very important to me to reassure the community that we're not making radical changes with respect to the processes that relate to chartering authority, and that in the event of a new charter application, that your local elected board still hears that. So I agree that I think a management entity, I'll say, does need to be brought in for the district with that authority for Adams City High School as well. I think that's consistent with the plea that we heard. We need help and we want to put students first. And my hope is that by giving very clear boundaries with respect to where that authority and responsibility for the management entity actually rests, my hope is that we'll have a clearer path going forward with those very clearly set boundaries. Thank you.
I agree with the recommendations of board members Sheffel and board members Rankin and McClellan. I agree with myself as well.
The hour's late.
Are you just passing?
I just said I agree with these recommendations.
Yeah, she's not passing.
Actually, I do too. I agree with the gist of what all my colleagues have said. Yeah, I want to go back and repeat the emphasis that I think we need to have on inclusivity in the sense of really defining and remembering who stakeholders are and how they are best utilized to move this along. I'd also like to see whether we're referring to a management entity or some other facet of this endeavor. Someone who's able to help the district and your community set up a regular cycle of check-in, check over, check on. You can call it communication, but to me it's going to become more than that. It's going to become a continuous, have I got this right? Do I understand you? What should I be carrying away from this? Really, a regular basis. And an invitation to one another and to us too. You can always invite us to learn about what you're doing. Anything where you can share that, and any management entity that knows how to foster that, promote that, would be much appreciated. And I'd also like to encourage thought on the part of the board, your Board of Education, about continuous learning and development and growth in order to really put this into effect that only enhances your presence and your known strength of being the leaders. And the final decision is really up to you, and you have what you need to carry it on. So that I agree with the first, that full management is a good approach for now. And we all will continue to think about what are the consequences, which can also be positive. Positive consequences of making a decision about that. So,
Thank you. Board Member Flores?
I think I agree
Okay.
with what was said by all members that came before me. And I think we need to be clear, and I don't think we were when we came together in 2017 of what was needed. And we've heard the community, and I do believe that we need to have some drastic change. And I think that will only take place if we do have an entity that comes in to help. If you see it as assistance and as a goad to do good things for students, I think that basically meaning, I don't think I heard anything different from what you suggested. And I'm talking to the people represented here by both districts, that you understood that change was needed, and you were willing to allow a second party to help your district in coming to fruition for the kids. And I think that, you know, these steps need to take place. Thank you.
Board Member Durham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's clear after the public input and everything we've gone through with this that any decision that this board makes is not going to be received by all parties and all stakeholders as right or appropriate, but I believe we find ourselves in the position of trying to do what's best for what I consider to be the most important stakeholder, which are the children of Adams County, District 14. And as you look at the array of problems, 30% of the students in that district have voted with their feet and have chosen to lead the district in one form or another. And I think of all of the test scores aside, of all of the other things you could look at, that is an extraordinarily telling statistic. And so what I would like to see in the order is that the accreditation of Adams District 14 be terminated, and that termination be stayed for a period of time, and I'm not sure how long, but probably 60 days, somewhere in that neighborhood. And should Adams 14 enter into a contract with an external manager or management organization that turns over in clear and unambiguous language control of those parts of the district decision-making that can be delegated, which I think include at a minimum the continued employment of at-will employees. I think it includes curriculum and instruction and a number of those decisions, so that we have pretty good language around that, and that should the Adams County Board, I think, unlike Pueblo, really indicated that they don't intend or are unwilling to make this change and really put an outside entity in charge with an opportunity to really make a difference. That if they elect not to enter into that contract, then the stay of the elimination of their accreditation is lifted, and district reorganization will follow at the end of that 60 or 30 or 90-day period, whatever I think we conclude is an adequate amount of time for an acceptable contract to be reached. But this is not the kind of contract that was certainly entered into last time, where there was really, I think, lip service given to some external management ideas. But I don't believe that any of the administrative personnel can serve two masters. I don't believe anybody can serve two masters. Somebody has to be in charge, and I think who's in charge has to be clear and unambiguous. And if the Adams County Board is not willing to do that, then I believe a reorganization process is the next best way to serve the students of that district. So that's what I hope as we talk about this a little more tomorrow, that the order would contain, and we can go forward from there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So I'm going to try to clarify what I heard as well as my positions, which I believe I've heard item 3, which is full management of Adams 14. That doesn't necessarily mean that opportunity 2, which was to maintain the current work plus external management, is out. But it does suggest that whoever the external management organization is, that they have the final decision on whether what's been implemented this past year is sufficient in terms of the curriculum and assessments and all that stuff, or if they truly believe that that is insufficient and it needs to be different. So that muddles 2 and 3 a little bit, but I hope that explanation helps. We are talking about full management of Adams 14, external management. So we need some help, Madam AG, about the governance issue, the authority, education issues. Probably look to the state review panel. Funding issues, who has authority and what authority would the EMO have over funding? At-will employees. In my mind, reporting. What kind of reporting? To whom? I think critical in this, if all the input that we have received is correct, how we're going to bring the community back into these schools in a positive way. Because I think there's been a bit of disconnect, at least with part of the community. I think some people mentioned the high school, but it seems to me that if there's authority on the part of the external management organization, they will do what needs to be done in the high school. I don't know that we ought to be providing any separate input, but you're free to disagree with me. But I think that's what we're saying. I agree with Board Member Durham's technical stuff about the accreditation piece. That's actually where the district is right now anyway, unless I'm mistaken, that we removed it and stayed it last year simply because it was required by law. So, and I also want to make sure that whatever contract the district signs with, or the board signs with the EMO, that our staff looks at it and that it covers, they have an evaluation that it covers what the state review panel provided. One of the things that I have requested is sort of a side-by-side by what the state review panel recommended and what the district was bringing forward. And it was similar but not identical. And so I want us to be very careful and probably as specific as possible. So for tomorrow, I think we should maybe talk about some of the things we want in there and leave it very, very drafty, just in order to provide enough time so that we're as specific as we can be when the ultimate motion is passed. We are pretty close to brain dead, and so we don't suggest that we will actually vote on the order tomorrow, but we will try to do so if possible within the week. We need to give staff some time to process what we've said today, and I'm assuming you're going to listen to the tape that we've rattled today. But I'm open to, if you have some more, I mean, I've tried to pick up specifics of what you all said, but if you have some more, tonight, assuming you sleep tonight.
Madam Chair, can I
Please.
just clarify a point of process?
Yes.
So I believe tomorrow you would vote on a motion that
Yes.
would give staff and the Attorney General enough clarity to write up an order.
Thank you.
And then the order would be voted on at a time to be determined at a special hearing, but as quickly as possible so that we can move this work forward. So hopefully sometime next week, but because of the specificity you're looking for, we want to have the time to appropriately do that when it's not late at night. Is that what okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Madam Chair, were you separately going to take up then
Pueblo,
Pueblo? Okay.
you bet.
Give us that same. Where you are.
Well, the high school, I mean, I don't know if you all agree with me, but I don't think there's a separate motion or a separate order for the high school, assuming that there is external management organization that has full responsibility for the district, then it's gonna be their job, and if we were to hire, we were to encourage a different organization, we could really make it hard. Do you agree?
I
So
do,
I
yeah.
think that sort of I mean, I don't know how, in the order how you incorporate that, but in order to put to rest the fact that we've gotta do something, but I'm not recommending a separate order for the high school, other than to follow whatever the recommendations are for the EMO. Anything else? Okay, let's talk about Pueblo. Let's do the same process, if you don't mind. We're on item 2 and 3. I think we all agreed that we are not going to just continue what we recommended, or what was agreed to last year. So is it what we did last year and something else? Or do we recommend a complete change? Mr. Durham, I gotta pick on you. Could you start, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think relative to Pueblo, that we should start with the proposition that Heroes Middle School and Risley International Academy of Innovation be converted to charter schools, and that order be suspended for a period of time to allow the Pueblo Board to enter into a management contract that it appeared to me they were willing to enter into, which in clear and unambiguous ways would cede the management authority of those two schools to an outside management organization. And that hopefully, we have some specific, I think there's an existing charter school that's interested in being considered for management. That's something that hopefully the board would consider and pick somebody that is in Pueblo and familiar and has a track record of success, but that's ultimately their decision. But if the board declines to enter into that kind of contract, that in a clear and unambiguous way turns over management of those schools up to and including the control of at-will employees and that are involved in those schools, and instructional issues, professional development issues and those things, then the charter order would be put in place for the next school year. So, but that would be suspended if the appropriate contract's entered into. So that's what I would like to see, that essentially it's a contract with a public or private entity that will wholly manage Risley Academy of International, any International Academy of Innovation and Heroes Middle School.
Thank you. Board Member Flores?
Okay, so the GOAT, I want to understand this, okay, what you just said. You're saying that, that unless the district does not do what they're saying they're going to do, and that is get an entity, an external management entity, and write it up in such a way, not in any way ambiguous as the 2017 order, then that indeed an outside management will be over. Then if this is not done, then they will be turned over, or we will give an order to then give them over to a charter management, or give them over to a charter entity.
That's correct, Dr. Flores. I think, accepting, I think the statements that were made by Pueblo, by the superintendent and the state, and the Pueblo board chairman, I think we're clear and unambiguous that they intend to do this. I hope that's the case and that we don't run into any hangups about it.
Right.
But presuming that that's the case, it sounds like it's something they recognize needs to be done. They're willing to do it, and so the condition that we're putting in place here, I think is highly unlikely to come into practice, but I don't know that the decision is going to be as easy as perhaps they thought it was, but we're talking about wholly managing the two schools. So it is significant. It is a significant change,
Right.
and hopefully one that will lead to improvement of outcomes for the children in those two schools.
Okay.
Okay. Board Member Goff?
Just to be clear, you're saying that what you heard from the board president and the superintendent was full intention to bring in external management.
Right.
And so
And
the idea you're conveying is that I think we understand. The charter putting it in the hands of a charter organization if the conditions of this order are not met.
Right, and
What
I
I'm-
asked very specific questions, as you remember, Ms.
Right.
Goff, about,
Right.
at-will employees and some of the other issues, and all of the answers were right on target, so I hope that continues to be the case.
Yeah. What I'm not remembering the same way, can you clarify what you just said recently about two schools
Yeah.
having full, because we just talked about a district.
Yeah, and the district's not in front of us here, it's the two.
Right. I'm
And
just
our,
trying to put
Yeah.
my
and our
comparison head
our
on.
authority, is clear in the statute that we could order these schools to be charters. I think that
Or
is not
closed.
what the majority of the board wants to do.
Okay.
So it's but that would be the alternative if they don't engage in putting those schools under management of a public or private organization. So that's sort of the stick, and the carrot is what they've, in fact, what would appear to me they already agreed to do. This just takes the mystery out of it, and so I think it meets the criteria that they presented in the meeting. I hope it does, but I don't think that we want to see a significant period of time go by where we end up with a contract that is in fact ambiguous as to who's in charge, and we're back to which of the two masters will everybody involved in this process serve? And that's a question I think we'd like to see answered.
It's interesting how the incentive is the disincentive.
It's
It's,
like a lot of life,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, the disincentive is being used
That's, well,
to create the incentive.
that is correct.
That's interesting.
It's called a hammer.
Yeah.
do you agree?
Do I agree? I agree with the idea that an external management entity is profitable, will be, I won't say profitable, fulfilling and come to fruition. And I really do sincerely hope that that can be arranged as quickly as possible with some pretty clear and stringent and rigorous criteria involved. Same things are always important. I think a plan that shows very obvious that there is communication that will continue, an attempt at everybody learning and growing and replicating things that work. Good use of finances, smart use of personnel, and respect for respect for the process of coming to make decisions. And I think a full community involvement with these two schools is, it feels to me, it holds a lot of promise. Those are dynamic communities that are looking for some good things to happen. And if those two communities are taking good advantage of what they can learn from someone who is in all the right spirit with all the right intention, saying this is how you do this, and holding the bar high for people to follow through, I think it can work. So I'm with you all the way, and I congratulate you on stepping up to do those great things. Appreciate it.
I concur with this recommendation. I think the district's already identified the full external management as a good option, and then consequences if that doesn't happen, but I think that this is a good path.
I really appreciate Superintendent Macaluso's candor, and it did sound to me like we probably do have a good faith agreement with respect to the areas of responsibility and empowerment for the management entity. So it's my hope that that things go forward that way with a good, solid agreement, as with the other district, with all of the points enumerated that we need to have spelled out in the requirements for a contract, so there's no ambiguity as to their responsibility and authority, so that we can preserve going forward with a solid contract that meets all of the requirements, the normal relationship that would allow your local board to hear any possible future charter application directly with your local board.
Superintendent Macaluso, I think you have a huge challenge ahead of you with your district, and it's not just the schools we're talking about, it's the whole thing. And I think you're on the right path. I think if we take these two schools out of that mix with what you're doing in your district, I think that will help those two middle schools. I object a little bit to this external management. I'm concerned it's not going to do enough. I like the idea of converting the two middle schools to charter schools and including an external management to oversee those two schools. A double dose of turning these schools around, I think, needs to be done. And from what I have read, we can do one or more choices. So these are the two I would suggest tonight. I need to think about this a little more, but I think the two charter schools could be managed if there is someone that would take them on by the same company, and then the management overseeing the umbrella of those two schools. It disturbs me greatly that we say, if you don't do better with external management, we're going to really hurt you by turning you into charter schools. There are some charter schools out there that do great things, and hopefully we would choose external management and or charters, but get the best we can to turn these around. We've got to think of the kids. We have got to think of the students. I've said it before, I'm saying it now, and if we can do two things to help and turn that around, I think we should do whatever we can. And aside from closing them down, I think this would be the best opportunity. That's where I am right now.
So again, was it 2 or 3? I think it is 3, with the understanding that the EMO would look at the work that's been done with the current program to see if it's effective or not effective, rather than us deciding whether they should continue on the same path from last year. So we are looking at question number 3, which is a change. Your homework tonight is to be thinking about the detail that we want. What are the things we want in the contract? Some of which we've articulated, and hopefully staff will also be able to help us. I want to make sure we don't forget to look at the criteria for the external management organization. Is it research-based? What sort of history do they have? What sort of capacity do they have? I need some guidance with that, because that's not anything I much know about, but I think it's very important to include that. So help us think about that. I also want to remind ourselves, and especially your comments about charter, both of these schools are schools of innovation. So they already have some flexibility. And what I did hear from Pueblo staff is that there were still opportunities to greater flexibility. And so for that reason, we don't necessarily need to charter because they can be very, very similar. And I think we've heard loud and clear that the community is not ready for that. I think if this is not successful, I think we're gonna hear from the community that they do want a charter or some other item, because they're not happy either with the achievement for their kids. So let's give this a chance. So please come prepared tomorrow. We're gonna bring this up, we're gonna talk about this again at 11. Do you wanna help clarify what I missed on this one, Commissioner?
No, I think it's the same thing that you guys will vote on a motion tomorrow, directing the AG
AG.
and staff to work on an order that has the specificity that you give us tomorrow, which you've already given us some, if that's what the full board agrees on. We'll have to have the vote to understand that, and then we will work hard to put that all into an order for your vote early next week.
And if you'd be good enough to go through the state review panel recommendations and evaluate them, please, because I think that's the beginning of this effort. Board Member Flores.
I think we need to. I know that you brought up the idea of the charter, but both the community and the people that reviewed the school did not think that this should happen, because this would break up, really, the community. And so we need to, leave here thinking that they are going to do a good faith effort to find an external management group that is, that has a research background and also the capacity for providing the assistance that is needed by Pueblo, these two schools, Risley, I'm sorry if I mispronounce it, and Heroes. Thank you.
Board Member Durham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to clarify one thing, and I think Ms. Rankin caught my error, and that is, I don't view conversion to a charter school in any way being a penalty. I think it's an opportunity, and I hope it's one that the Pueblo Board might explore, because I think at least in the one instance, it was pretty close to being the recommendation of the review panel for one of the schools, certainly not for both. But it might be a quick and easy way to, for the board to have a way to compare and contrast results, and I suspect you will get good results with both these changes, and so I would hope you wouldn't foreclose that option. And it's certainly, I don't view it as all as a penalty. I would view it as a positive opportunity for the community. Thank you.
It could actually be a recommendation from the EMO for all we know.
Yeah.
We can't really require anything in advance that would.
Correct.
So I'll try not to verklempt here, but I am so grateful. I'm tired, but I'm also so grateful for all the work, both from the district and from staff. We're just all exhausted. Okay.
Crying in state board.
This is not baseball. And I think we're adjourned until tomorrow, or recessed.
Recessed.
No, I don't want a motion. Just hammer your hammer. Okay.